What's going on, YouTube? My name is SlapHappyGreen, and welcome to the 5th consecutive days of CSGO Major Breakdowns. Insight recap. Of course, day 5 today included the 4th and final quarterfinal matchup, as well as 2 semifinal matchups. This splitting the last 2 days, 3 matches each, 3 quarterfinals yesterday, 1 quarter, and the 2 semis today. So, to keep you up to date on just a little reminder, refresher on what happened yesterday in the first day of quarterfinals. Nip and Navi faced off in the first match. Navi 2-0'd Nip on Inferno, and I believe the other one was Mirage. Yes, Mirage. That put them into the first semifinal spot. They played the winner of Astralis and Fnatic. Good match. A good match between those two teams. However, Astralis ended up winning it 2-0. Again, if you want to find out any more about these matches because you might have missed them, you can check out my previous breakdown match on yesterday, which will be in my CSGO playlist, which will be in the description down below. Or if you want to check out any of the information from any of the previous days' games, the videos for those days will also be in the same playlist. Third semifinal matchup of the day yesterday was the All-American matchup between Team Liquid and CLG. Very entertaining. Very. I think a lot of players would tell you that was a very emotional matchup, just with the way that those maps went. Liquid ended up coming out on top 2-0, but just an incredible game between those two teams. Incredible matchup. And an absolutely unbelievable series. Again, want to know more, check out the games, videos, or go and check out my coverage of the match from yesterday's video. So, that kind of set up 2/3, well, 3/4 of the semifinals that were to take place later today. Astralis and Navi in the first semifinals, and Team Liquid to face off against the winner of the 4th quarterfinal that take place in the early morning. That would being between VP and Luminosity. Now, in VP versus Luminosity, VP vetoed Inferno. Luminosity vetoed Dust 2. VP's map pick was Cache, which Luminosity chose to start CT-sided on. Luminosity's map pick was Cobble, which VP chose to start on T-side, and then the deciding map was randomized as Overpass, which VP was able to choose to start CT-sided on. Now, in this matchup, a number of good plays by both teams. Luminosity got a couple of early quick picks. Pistol round by pushing Squeaky. However, VP was able to trade this out, put the round into a 2v2, which VP managed to win. However, and that was the start of a decent round, decent half for Virtus.Pro. A little bit of back and forth, sort of, with chains. Luminosity managed to pick up some rounds once they started pushing aggressively. Picked up their first round by getting some early picks within a main push that allowed them to get on the board. Fallen got some of his own early picks from checkers and other rounds. However, once Virtus.Pro kind of keyed into the kind of plays that Luminosity was wanting to push on their CT side with those aggressive plays, they started playing a little bit farther back, allowing them to hold angles for the CTs to push into to start getting those early picks going back in their favor, which allowed them to get the half with a 10-5 score. Going into the second half, VP with a 10-5 lead. VP kind of put themselves in a tough position, playing retake on both sides. A site in particular, more often than not. This allowed Luminosity in the early rounds to get in kind of almost for free, get early bomb plants, and allowing VP to try and get the site back in numbers, but often not able to salvage the round. They did manage to win the first gun round to get back in it, but they were quickly reset. I don't remember quite not if it was the following round afterwards or if they managed to pick up 2 or 3 before then, but they did end up getting reset. This gave Luminosity a couple more rounds, allowing them to control the economy of Virtus.Pro for the majority of the half. VP did manage to pick up a couple more rounds on their CT side, but not enough to finish off Luminosity, forcing the game into overtime. If I remember correctly, VP did manage to pick up first round of overtime, but Luminosity pushed back, gained the next 2. Actually, no. I think it was a back and forth. I think VP picked up the second. Sorry, Luminosity picked up the second, and then VP picked up the third to go into the half at 18-17. Sorry, 18-16. Luminosity managed to pick up second half pistol on CT side of overtime, but was not able to prevent VP from finishing off the map. So that put first map in favor of Virtus.Pro. Some of the players that had particularly good games for VP were Bialy and Snacks. A lot of good key frags, a lot of opening frags. Taz had a couple of good important kills. If I remember correctly, Pasha had a good T side, but kind of cooled down a little bit on his CT. For Luminosity, Fallen, a number of good frags, particularly on T side. Cole was helping with controlling a lot of play, and FNX with a number of important frags in the first map. So this led us into our second map, which was Cobblestone. Not really a whole lot to really say about Cobble for me. It just seemed to me like Luminosity seemed like the much better prepared team to play it, which you would think it would actually be the other way around, considering Virtus.Pro had already played this map twice so far in this major. But Luminosity was able to pick up a lot of early rounds due to early picks with players like Fallen. Pistol round, especially, Fallen was able to get a couple of picks towards mid area on A. VP managed to close in towards site, but not unable to recover from the early disadvantage. On a couple of the follow-up rounds, Virtus.Pro managed to do a good job taking sites, but again, just not able to finish off rounds. Luminosity's retakes were very good when VP managed to get bombed down, but more often than not, it was often early picks, just not allowing VP to have much room to do what they needed to gain sites. And in a map like Cobblestone, where you're usually expecting it to be T-sided, it was not a good showing in the first half for Virtus.Pro. Just missing way too many shots, just getting outplayed. Second half, they picked it up a little bit. They ended up giving up the pistol to Luminosity, but they made shots from good positions to be able to hold B second round. This kind of gave them a little bit of momentum, allowed them to pick up a couple of rounds, but once LG picked up their second round T side, VP's economy just wasn't in a strong enough position for them to be able to fend off follow-up rounds, and that allowed Luminosity to finish off the second map, 16-10. Fallen again with a bunch of important frags for Luminosity. Taco was a little bit quiet on this map. You would have liked to have seen him have a little bit of a bigger impact, but Luminosity's more superstar players like Fallen, Cold, had good maps, and FNX contributed very well on his own. For Virtus.Pro, again, it just didn't seem like a lot of players were able to get themselves going. Bialy had a good showing. Taz had a couple of good rounds, but their rounds just seemed to be very hit and miss. Sometimes they do well, sometimes they didn't. Patch had a very off map. He was not able to get a lot of important frags, missed a lot of shots that normally you would see him hit. This allowed the matchup to go to the third map, which was Overpass. Again, VP started CT side, Luminosity on T. VP managed to get the pistol, but they lost the follow-up force round, which they almost clutched, but unfortunately, Luminosity was able to hold on to. The odds were fairly even up to the end. Up till about the end. It was about 2v3 when Luminosity was getting the plant down, which they forced into a 1v3, getting a pick on the remaining B player. I think it was Snacks was the remaining player at that point. He managed to rotate to B, get 2 of the picks on the remaining 3 players, but just wasn't able to finish off the last guy. Even if he did not have the defuse kit at the time, it would not have been able to defuse with the remaining time, but just kind of some odd plays helping some LG players survive a little bit more, giving them the upper hand. LG was able to take those rounds, a couple of those early rounds, just kind of control the game, control the pace, control Virtus.Pro's economy. It just allowed them to basically steamroll over a lot of VP's defense on Overpass the first half. Some time management issues and maybe a little bit of uncertainty on when to take sites allowed VP to pick up their second round in the half, get back on the board. They were able to pick up a second one, but with just the 3 rounds, not really able to put in enough pressure to make it a close half against Luminosity. Going into the second half with the 12-3 lead onto their CT side. Second half pistol, Virtus.Pro T side, they did a good job of making their way into bomb sites, getting the plant, forcing rotates so that they could a little bit more easily gain the bomb site, but they were able to do it without having to take off a lot of Luminosity players. I think this actually left Luminosity in a 4v3 retake scenario, which was even more out of hand because Pasha kind of went on a long rotate, so allowed Luminosity's players to kind of group up, take out VP's players one at a time, and pick up the pistol. All hope not lost for VP though, because even at 13-3 after the pistol, they did manage to pick up the force, and it looked like they were going to be able to do to Luminosity what they did to VP on their T side and get those picks, get those rounds, control that economy, but Luminosity did a good job of making those rounds that they were losing, not all of them, but a lot of them, close rounds. So once they did start picking up rounds on their own CT side, left Virtus.Pro in a little bit of an awkward situation money-wise, allowing them to pick up rounds with a little bit more consistency than VP was able to do on their CT side, and allowing them to finish out the map 16-11. Um, Pasha had a little bit of a better map on Overpass, but Snacks and Bialy, who had such good first two maps, just kind of seemed to fade away a little bit on this map. Uh, Even though Pasha did have a little bit of a better map, there were a couple of rounds where kills that he could have had, kills that he maybe should have had, uh, just bounces that didn't go their way that helped Luminosity gain some advantage in some rounds. Um, has a few good rounds of his own, but again, just not enough, and with not enough support to be able to pick up enough round wins. I think I'd say Cold and Fur were probably the biggest MVPs for Luminosity on Overpass. Not necessarily the top fraggers. Cold had 21, which was tied with FNX, and Fur was a little bit behind at 19. But I think those were the two that definitely had some of the more important frags on Overpass. Entry kills, clutch kills, retake prevention kills on CT side, or on T side, to help them pick up the rounds that they needed to get through Virtus.Pro on this map with the most ease. So that was our fourth quarterfinal match, giving us our lineup for the semifinals. Navi versus Astralis, and BP gone. But that gave us our first quarterfinal of Navi versus Astralis. Hold on, I have that information here. So Navi versus Astralis. Astralis banned Cobble, Navi banned Cash. Astralis picked Inferno, which Navi chose to start CT side on. Navi chose Dust 2. Astralis chose to start CT. And then Mirage was randomized as the deciding map, and Astralis had the option to choose to start CT on it. As far as the map picks go, not overly happy about Astralis' Inferno pick. It was one of the maps in which Navi defeated the Ninjas and Pajamas on earlier on in the tournament, actually in the previous round in the quarterfinals. So I was kind of worried that this was a map that Navi was going to be able to pick up against Astralis, and then the opportunity to win their map, does too, and then possibly have the second chance to win the third map of Mirage. I was kind of nervous for Astralis coming into this because of those map picks, because of that. But those were the maps that we ended up with. I felt like Astralis was really having trouble hitting shots, especially early on. They were missing a lot of good early opportunities to get picks right up until about the first gun round. In the round after, this allowed Navi to pick up the first 3 rounds before Astralis was able to get on the board. After the first 2 rounds that Astralis was able to pick up, Navi was kind of able to take back a little bit of control for a round or two until Guardian got a little bit aggressive with his op at B, standing up on car, and the visibility as the smoke faded allowed Astralis to get a kind of sneak in under the sightlines of his scope and get the early pick, allowing them to get back into it. Navi was doing a good job of moving their defense around, but once they started picking up rounds, Astralis started getting those picks, started getting rounds. One of the more important ones, I think, towards Astralis' half, Astralis pulled off a good pop flash to gain mid towards A. Um, this flashed. It started by flashing one of the Navi defenders that was boosted on quad. Um, he got, because he was flashed, he was able to get picked off basically for free. Um, and then on the push of the second angle that Guardian was holding with the op, he actually missed his first shot, which then allowed Astralis to pick him as well, which gave them easy access into the site and yet another round on their side. Astralis started slowing down their pace a little bit on their T side as they were picking up rounds. Kind of a little bit more Navi style of play with the little bit slower takes. They weren't waiting quite as long, but they were basically playing Navi's own game for a number of rounds, including one round where they were able to triple entry onto A site, which was the start of 2 consecutive rounds where they were able to get the round with all 5 players surviving, boosting their economy a lot. Probably the MVP for Navi on their first half on CT side was Edward. Flamey had some good rounds as well, but there were a lot of rounds where Edward was putting in a lot of strong picks to help keep Navi in some rounds. Sometimes it didn't pan out, sometimes they still managed to lose rounds, but other rounds, like, it was they ended up being very important frags that allowed Navi to pick up rounds on CT side that they probably wouldn't have otherwise if they had to do retakes at even more of a disadvantage in the round. For a while, Device was out opping Guardian, and this was definitely not a match that Guardians seemed to do very well on in this series, which I was actually kind of a little bit disappointed in because he'd had a great Inferno previous day against Nip. I thought he was one of the big reasons why they won that map against Nip, but he just seemed to be a little bit off his game on Inferno this round. He was getting out-opped a lot at mid by Device in particular, and then just kind of giving up rounds other side. He did, however, manage to get a opener on the final round when they tried to take B, and with this followed by a 3K from Flamey, this allowed them to get the last round, of the half. Unfortunately, they still left them down 7-8 going into second half and onto their T side. They kind of pulled off a little bit of a surprising T side on this map, I would say. Normally, Navi is known for slow executes, waiting a long time in rounds. They started off their T side with a very quick B rush down Banana, of which they got 3 kills on before they gained sight and got the plant. Oh, fuck, what is that? Following around, they kind of did the same, more towards mid, more towards A, which actually ended up being a good thing because Astralis chose to use that round to nade stack B with 4 HEs. So if they tried to go for a similar play, or even had just had a couple of guys down Banana, looking down Banana, could have given Astralis a lot of early picks just on nade damage, and could have given them early rounds on their CT side, or at least helped them get them. They managed to pick up the second round and third round. Number of good Mac 10 kills to help build up their economy. And that was when Astralis decided to get on the board. They managed to do a good job getting picks in the first gun round. I think this left them in kind of a 3v3, two guys 3v3 where Navi had two guys towards B site wanting to take it. Astralis had two guys B, one guy still A. But that one guy was Device, and he actually managed to get a flick shot on Seized to help put the numbers in Astralis' favor and help them gain the round. A couple rounds later, when they gained B at a little bit of a disadvantage, down 2v3, Guardian actually double faked the plan at Grill to get one of the last remaining B defender of Astralis to kind of be kind of close to site, which allowed Guardian to get the pick, even it out, 2v2, and they actually ended up winning the round. This got their T side going once again. Number of good takes, number of good retakes on second half, but as the half kind of went on, Navi just kind of slowly ground out rounds. They mixed up their paces a lot. Sometimes they went quick, sometimes they went slow, and this really seemed to throw Astralis off. As the game went along, they just kind of started missing shots because it just looked like they weren't as sure in their defense as they'd been at the start of the half. Navi managed to mount the comeback, have a strong T side, get the 9-6 finish. Again, like I said, Edward, huge for Navi on this map. Flamey had a good one as well, which was good because the guy you would usually expect to be that guy for Navi on a map, Guardian, had a little bit of an off map. He only finished 14 and 20. Couple of good rounds where he came out with some good kills, but overall not his greatest map this tournament so far. Device had a number of good rounds for Astralis, particularly on T side, but just not enough support from the surrounding teammates to manage to finish off Navi. Navi ended up taking the map 16-14 in regulation after being down 7-8 at the end of first half. So this led us, unfortunately, that meant Navi stole Astralis' pick. This led us into Dust 2. Navi's pick. Navi starting T side because Astralis chose to start CT. Astralis is known for having a good CT side on Dust 2, but especially one that counters often what Navi likes to do on their T side, taking Cat. But again, it just kind of seemed to be sort of the same story as some of Inferno had been, especially on Navi's T side, where they were just mixing up their pacing, mixing up their plays so well. Astralis never really managed to find a groove on their CT side. Flamey with a huge number of kills, openers, clutch plays. Edward with some good picks early in rounds, late in rounds. Guardian, again, not forced to have the strongest map. And even his kill count, like, there were two players in the second map here on Dust 2 that ended up below 10 frags. Kerrigan on Astralis side went 9 and 16, and Guardian on Navi went 9 and 10. Like, not a ton of frags for Guardian on definitely a very favorable map in Dust 2, but a lot of the frags that he did get helped give Navi advantages early in rounds, or come up with huge kills at the right times on takes, going up Cat towards A. But again, Flamey, Edward, probably the two biggest players for Navi on this map, helped really control their T side, change up their speeds, change up their plays, and just generally control the map. Astralis never really found a groove on Dust, allowed Navi to control a lot of the play, take first half 12-3 on their T side, and they just never let Astralis build up any sort of economy on either side. Can't remember who took the second pistol. Yeah, close pistol that Navi took. Astralis managed to get a force, which Navi kind of reset them on. A couple of mistakes by Navi in the follow-up round allowed Astralis to kind of steal again. But Edward with some huge plays to just deny too much to Astralis. Help them finish out the mount. Finish out the map. Let them take it 2-0. Tough series for Astralis. Again, kind of the semi-final curse for them. Seems to rear its ugly head again. This team has all the talent in the world, all the skill in the world that they need to be able to make a grand final, to be able to take a major tournament. And you'd think with how well they handled Fnatic the previous day that it was a sign of good things to come. But again, in the semifinals, running into another, in my opinion, very hot team in Navi. They've been playing so well as of late. Last couple of matches I've seen, at least, they've looked really good, very incredible. Just incredible to see them take such control of Astralis here, especially on the second map. Like, you can say it's Astralis not hitting shots, you can say it's Astralis doing something wrong along the way, but it was really just so much more about all the things that Navi was doing right. Now, of course, after that leads us to our last game of the day and our second semifinal. Team Liquid versus Luminosity. Bans went down. Luminosity banned us too. Kind of not surprising. That's usually generally one of their preferred bans. Plus, Luminosity showed that they're definitely good on it, beating Fnatic on it. Liquid chose to ban Inferno. I don't know if that was maybe their best ban that they could have picked, but it's what they ended up going with. Luminosity's pick was Mirage. Definitely a good map for Luminosity. Definitely a probably preferred map of theirs. But I was kind of unsure about this one because we saw Liquid in their matchup not yesterday, but the day before, yesterday, in their quarterfinal against CLG, just come in and just kind of railroad CLG on Mirage. So I thought that was definitely a map that Liquid could win. And second map ended up being Cash, which was Liquid's pick. On Mirage, they chose to start T-side before picking Cash, which I was kind of questionable about. They had a rough start the previous day on Cash in their match against not Luminosity, against CLG, but they obviously liked the map, went back to it again today. Luminosity chose to start CT side. Third map was Cobble, and Liquid had the opportunity to choose which side to start, and they chose CT. Something I was kind of scared about. Again, a map that's just supposed to be so T-side heavy. You give Luminosity the chance to start on the side that's supposed to be the stronger side to start on. And we already saw how well that they were able to do on their CT side earlier in the day against Virtus.Pro when they played Cobble. So I felt that if Liquid wanted to have a chance to win this series, they really needed to pick up Luminosity's map pick in Mirage. So pretty good start on Mirage for Luminosity. Good A take on their T side. And they did a good job of cutting off rotates by having two players push into CT to take out two players that were trying to set up to retake the site, with another player coming in from, I believe it was the connector area. It's kind of allowed them to get control early. I think it was third round. It was either second or third round. Hiko clutched out a round with a couple of good kills with his P250 which included one kill that actually stopped the bomb plant when Luminosity finally decided to try and get a plant on A. He was then able to pick up the dead player's MP7 that had been bought by the Luminosity player and dink, and then switch up angle and take out the last remaining Luminosity player for the round win. This kind of started things a little bit for Team Liquid. Next round that they got was off of a good round in mid, where Simple got 2 quick kills from window. Almost got a third, but actually ended up giving up the trade pick when he tried to chase a player into underpass and just ended up getting taken down there. They still managed to win the round with Liquid, but it ended up being a lot closer than it could have been and probably should have been, because Simple gave up the basically free refrag. For the first half, Luminosity managed to control most of it by having good takes based off of mid control, something that Team Liquid was giving up a lot early on in rounds. This allowed Luminosity to kind of control the pace for most of the middle part of the first half. Eventually, Liquid kind of adjusted, kind of got their groove back on their CT side, picked up a couple of extra rounds. But it still left them in kind of a precarious position. They came out of the first half down 7-8, going on to T side. Took a lot of good control early, starting with their pistol round. They did a 5 armor rush B play that allowed them to pick up the first round. They almost got forced against in the second round when they kind of got some early picks and were looking to push B, but they kind of hummed and hawed in apartments, which allowed CTs to rotate and almost allowed them to actually hold the site, but Liquid was able to get it. This allowed Liquid to get into a really good position, almost to win the map, but Luminosity called a timeout. Right up against it, kind of scary. Right after the timeout, Fallen had a huge hold on B site. That hold on. Yeah. Fallen with the uphold on B, managed to get them their first round after they'd basically given up a whole bunch of rounds, almost right up against the wall. They were immediately reset. I believe it was for map point at that point, which kind of left it kind of scary position for Luminosity. But Coldzera had an absolutely huge 4K on B with an op that included a opening pick on Adren, and then a Collat no scope on, can't remember exactly who the 2 players that he hit, but it was huge round that allowed Luminosity to get back into the game. They actually managed driving it to overtime. In the first overtime round, Liquid on T side, they tried to kind of go for a similar play as they did first time on T side. They had a pistol round, but unfortunately they accidentally T-keyed to put themselves in a little bit of a deficit, and then Simple jumped down into van. Didn't see Coldzera where he was. Oh wait, no, that's not pistol round. That's third round. But yeah, but no, the 4K by Coldzera was what started a huge string of rounds for Luminosity to be able to force overtime, of which Luminosity picked up the first 2 rounds of. And in the third round, Liquid low on money, Liquid low on equipment, guns, nades, armor. Like, definitely not a great buy. They got forced by Cold towards B. That was where they accidentally TK'd, which put them in kind of a deficit in the round. Gave Luminosity the advantage. And then there was so many flashes and nades and all that kind of stuff going on. Simple never noticed that Cold Zero was still sitting by Van. So when he jumped down, Cold Zero was able to get a kill with Simple looking the wrong way. And that allowed them to basically 1-2-3 Liquid on the first half of overtime. And then they picked it up on the first of 3 possible match points on T side OT in order to win the first map. Which is unfortunate because it was a good map. It was very close. Both teams had to make adjustments at one point or another to kind of get themselves in a good position. A lot of the play that I loved out of Liquid, just to get themselves into good positions. Simple, again, threw himself away a couple times on bad plays. I talked about the jumping out of window after he got a 2K. There'd been a third player there that he'd been battling against, had him low, but he was low himself. Tried to jump out a window to go after the guy as he was trying to retreat underpass. Like, just kills like that could have come back to bite Liquid, but didn't, at least not in that round. Hiko with a number of incredible plays, some good clutches. Elige got a lot of good, important frags on the map. Adren didn't have the strongest map, but a number of the picks that he did get were important towards getting rounds. But unfortunately, it wasn't. They just couldn't figure out a way to finish off Luminosity in this map. Fallen, Cold, Fur, all with huge map. FNX with a number of important kills on both T and CT side. Just allowed Luminosity to stay in the map, force the overtime, and then they just kind of controlled the overtime. Never really gave Liquid an inch, allowing them to 4-0 them in overtime. This took us to Liquid's map pick, which was Cash. Luminosity starting CT side. Like VP had earlier in the day, Luminosity played retake A on pistol round, which allowed them to get a good plant, a very quick, easy plant. But Luminosity retook well and actually won the round with basically kind of a in the smoke ninja defuse, while the remaining Luminosity players defended the diffuser from the remaining 1 or 2 Liquid players that were still alive at that point. No, sorry, from the remaining Luminosity players that were alive at that point. Luminosity started T-side Liquid CT. Because of the bomb plants, they actually forced up on a round 3 buy, which was almost successful, if not for some good clutches by Liquid. Because Liquid actually had not been expecting the round 3 buy up, and actually still had 3 SMGs when Luminosity forced for the first gun round. But they managed to win a couple of good battles versus the rifles, including the opening battle in Squeaky. Can't remember who it was who pushed in it, but they managed to beat somebody with an AK with just an SMG for the first pick of the round. And that kind of put Luminosity's first buy kind of on a back burner at that point. Following round, no, sorry, not following round, but 2 rounds later when Luminosity was on a buy again, Hiko came out with an absolutely huge clutch 1v4. 2 quick picks, 1 main, 1 forklift on the 2 players that Luminosity had still had up at that point with the highest amount of health, leaving 2 players on A site, 1 quad, 1 default. I think they had like 25 health combined, something like that. They were both really low. They were both in the red. They both tried to peek together to take on Hiko, but he managed to spray them both down and pick up the clutch. Fallen a little bit later had a clutch of his own, 2v1, including one that managed to stop the defuse. Cold with a 3K mid, following up round, allowed LG to not get reset, allowed them to control a little bit more play. But after LG had gotten a couple of rounds, Liquid kind of shifted their tactics a little bit. They had started the map with Dren as primary opper, and he was doing okay with it, but Luminosity just kind of seemed to fear it out a little bit. So they switched it around. They put the op over to Simple, and for the rest of the first half, like Simple was just doing so well. Just a lot of plays that they made. After they started picking up rounds again off of Luminosity, Hiko clutched the following round to prevent themselves from being reset. A couple rounds later, they were able to get a really easy pick on Fallen in Toxic as he was trying to set up for a nade, but Simple had not been properly Molotoved out of checkers to make sure that Fallen would have the time to throw it, give them a really quick early pick, really easy early pick. Stuff just a lot of stuff in Luminosity's T side just looked like it was kind of falling apart a little bit for a while. Liquid's pistol almost failed because they were kind of looking to set up for a mid play, but LG pushed Squeaky, got a couple early picks, but Liquid was able to trade out, kind of like VP was able to do earlier in the day and salvage the round. Fallen was able to get some good picks to hold B on later rounds, and for Liquid, sometimes a number of rounds just came down to time management, not giving themselves the proper time to take sites, get plants. I want to say map 2 was a good map. I really do. Both sides were hitting shots. Both shots were making great plays. I think Liquid really should have had this map, especially with how well they did CT side. Yes, a lot of their CT rounds ended up having to come down to really big clutch plays from players like Hiko, Simple, but it really felt like they had a really successful CT side. But unfortunately, they were not quite able to get the rounds that they needed to in the second half. And again, Luminosity was just able to hang around the game, have a good CT side of their own, just kind of control Liquid's economy, not give them the time and room to get enough rounds to finish off Luminosity. And for the second straight map, these guys went into overtime. This time Liquid managed to pick up a round in the overtime, but unfortunately one would be all they would be able to get. Again, players like Simple and Hiko had such huge important rounds for Liquid, but guys like Cold, guys like Fallen just had huge rounds. And once Luminosity started getting momentum on their T side, Taco bought a Scar 20. And once Taco picked up that Scar, like Liquid just didn't seem to be able to gain a single inch. They couldn't find a way to figure out a way around the Scar, around the auto sniper. And once it got to overtime, again, Luminosity just took over. To be honest, I think that this was probably Taco's best map of the entire major so far. Coldzera had a great map as well. Fallen was a little bit hit and miss. Sometimes he was very good. Sometimes he hit shots that you'd think he should hit. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, Luminosity again manages to hang in, manages to grind out, and in overtime manages to come through. And get the 2-0. To be honest, I don't even really know what to say, because it was such a great series, and you see Team Liquid go from such a low to such a high yesterday. How well they got handled on their CT side against CLG, going down 12-3 first half and coming back from that, like just hitting that high, getting so many consecutive rounds, pulling off such a huge comeback, and then just blasting away CLG on Mirage. Then to come back in the semifinals, in so many ways, play such a good game against Luminosity. Really on both maps, they played very well, but just not able to finish off rounds, just not able to finish off maps. Allow Luminosity back in, and once Luminosity got back into both of those maps, they just said, no, we're not letting you take it back. And where Liquid couldn't finish, Luminosity did. Gotta feel bad for the guys in Liquid for how their major has finished, but they played so well. They got out of groups. They put up such a great fight, beating beating Fnatic. Who did they face off against yesterday? Beating, God damn it, not enough pages. Beating CLG in such a nail-biter match. Like, I hope that these guys are able to build around this, able to just kind of take this loss in stride. Because so many things went right for them in this tournament. Hiko was huge. Simple, yeah, there were a couple of maps that Simple wasn't great on, but then there were other maps like Mirage yesterday, Mirage today, Cash today, where he had such great games on. To see them lose like this is kind of heartbreaking for me, as much it is must be for those guys, because like, I'm not really a huge fan of most of these teams. Like I'm not necessarily cheering for Liquid or cheering for Lunas. I'm just cheering for great CS. And they were playing great CS, but they just couldn't finish off these maps today against Luminosity. And to be honest, I do think that the better team is going to the grand final. I do think that Luminosity is a better team than Liquid. But in this final, in this major, you see the potential in these guys. You see how close they are. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Liquid. Obviously, Adran is a stand-in for Kusta in this tournament. He played so well. Had a little bit of a so-so Mirage today against Luminosity, but came back with a good cash. And it had pretty much a good tournament up to this point. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Adran and Kusta and the rest of Team Liquid moving forward. But unfortunately, this does set up our grand final, which I'm going to do a little bit of a talk about in this video as well. So actually, I think I'm going to do that in a separate video, because we're already almost at an hour. And these are really more, these videos that I'm doing for these breakdowns and stuff are really more supposed to be for breaking down the matches that were, not the matches that will be. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of a breakdown for the finals in another video that will also go up today. So if you guys are watching this, that video is not up yet, stick around because it should be soon. But that's going to be it for now. That's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys did, be sure to leave a like, and also let me know what you thought about today's video, about today's games, in the comment section down below. Because, to be honest, your guys' opinions mean as much to me as my own, and I look forward to hearing them. But that's going to be it for me in this video. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to leave a like. If you guys are looking forward to more, or if you want to check out some more stuff, obviously, usually this is a gaming content channel, not usually a vloggy breakdown style of channel, but if you're interested in some gameplay, CS, or other stuff, be sure to check out the channel. Hope you guys enjoyed. You guys know me on YouTube at SlapHappyGreen, and I'll see you guys in the next video. For now, I'm out.